Okay, I have a very special guest with me today to go over the biggest stories in the news. This is John Fawcett. He has been the show producer for the late Lou Dobbs for about 5 years now. We want to go through some stories together. John, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephen. You put on a great show, and I'm happy to finally be a part of it.
Yes. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. You've been doing a great show. I was so saddened to hear about the sudden passing of Lou Dobbs. He is such a well-known name and face for America, such a patriot. He loved this country so much. I know that you guys were all caught off guard by his passing. Are you going to continue to run his show and honor his name, or have you guys even thought about that yet?
You know, it's only been about a week or so since the tragic news, so we're all still licking our wounds to see. Up until Lou's last day, he'd taken a little bit of time off, and I had been covering in for him on the show. I've been with Lou for about 5 years, and I think Lou's vision for me was always to follow in his footsteps. I mean, but very down to the way that he taught me to write. I give Lou credit for everything I know in this industry, writing, reading. I started working for Lou and I couldn't put a sentence together. And now, here I am. I was writing 20, 30-minute, segments and stuff like that. We're going to take some time off. Working for Lou was the greatest honor of my life. But as anyone who knows that it was worked for Lou, they know when you work for Lou, there's no such thing as time off. The man did not sleep. He was 7 days a week. I mean, he was doing 3 shows, a radio show, a podcast, a TV show. He did not stop. So I'm going to take some time off and see where we are in a few weeks and, talk with Lou's wife and the rest of our team and see where we go from here.
All right. Well, as someone who's been doing it, I understand the grind. So we hope that you guys will, continue to move forward and be a part of sharing the news. Speaking of the news, I wanted to jump in. There has been so much controversy around what is going on with Biden. One day, his doctor's saying he's on $1,300 Plaxivit and doing great. The next, we're hearing he's on hospice and might not make it through the night. We're hearing about, this possible a medical emergency in Las Vegas. They're saying that was all made up. Jim Biden is saying we want to enjoy as much time with our brother as we can, alluding to time being short. What do you think is going on with all of this Biden health stuff?
As for the Jim Biden spendings last few days, as someone who just lost somebody very close to them, I think that's the appropriate thing to do. If that is the case, we're told back in early July, there was an episode on Air Force One where it was reported from people that he maybe had a TIA, which is it's a sort of a mini stroke, and they had been monitoring that. It hasn't been confirmed anywhere, but it's just puzzling to see that. We saw Joe Biden in 2020 when he ran against President Trump, and we knew he wasn't well. But then we saw him progress, and And now, 3.5 years later, we see this man who can't string a sentence together. There's obviously something wrong with him. And it's even more telling to the fact that the White House doctor says there's nothing wrong with him. Now, come to find a few weeks ago, Congressman James Comer, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, tells us the White House doctor just so happened to be involved in maybe some of the Biden crime family dealings with, I believe it was called AmeriCorps with Joe Biden's brother. I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered here. And the fact that Joe Biden dropping out of the race at this point in time, or just a few weeks ago, we're told there may be something wrong with him, is very troubling. And we're going to, soon find out from Joe Biden if he's staying in at the White House. He told us he's going to stay in the presidential race. He dropped out, and he told us he's going to stay in as president. I guess it's yet to be seen.
Yeah. So 2 things, we're told he's the most popular president in American history, the most votes received in American history. Right. This man is loved. He's now getting the most calls to step away, to save the country. You must be gone. That is confusing. Up until before the tragic debate against Trump, where Trump looked presidential. He dominated him. He had charisma, power, knowledge. We were told Joe Biden was the most intelligent president we've ever had. His foreign, his ability to deal with foreign issues was, genius level. His understanding of money and economy was genius level. Running the White House, genius level. And then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, dude, this guy's got yogurt for brains. We got to get rid of him. And then, George Clooney is like, I can't lie. Like, this guy is not mentally well. He's got to step away. What is going on? Is this an entire gaslighting psyop against the American people?
I think the whole thing has been a lie. We all know Joe Biden's not the smartest man to rule any part of the government. I think there's clips from way back when of Obama saying he's probably one of the dumbest people he knew. And I mean, it's just the truth of the matter. Joe Biden, when he announced his campaign for 2024, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Well, Joe, you've been in politics your whole life. You've never had a real job, right? Your whole life has been spent in politics. Now you're running for a second term and you're telling us, oh, I'm going to do this, and this. It's truly a disgrace because just a month ago, George Clooney hosted a fundraiser with other elites, and he knew the condition Joe Biden was in. He saw the condition Joe Biden was in. All these other elites, the mainstream media got Morning Joe Scarborough. A week before the debate, you must vote for Joe Biden because that means you're saving democracy. The next day after the debate, you got Scarborough going out there saying, we need to get rid of Joe Biden to save democracy. I mean, these people have their heads shoved so far in the sand, they can't even see straight. You'd mentioned also democracy. Democracy in action is not what we're seeing. You had Joe Biden receiving millions of votes over the past primary for the 2024 election. Nearly 4,000 delegates voted for Joe Biden to be the presumptive Democratic nominee. Now within the flip of a switch, you have the DNC and the Democratic Party coming in saying, sorry, Joe, you've got to go. And Kamala, here you go. I mean, that's democracy, Stephen.
Yeah, no, it's, this morning I got thinking maybe they knew for a fact Kamala couldn't get through the primaries. I mean, when she ran, she couldn't even get to Iowa before she dropped out. Nothing to do with New Hampshire, nothing to do with South Carolina. She was so unpopular, so unloved, so untrustworthy that they were like, no, we're not giving any more money, no support, no votes. Now they're propping her up as if she is, Barack Obama reincarnated as the greatest victory for America. Right. It's just all very suspicious. But think about this: the Democrat leaders go on national television every single day, 365 days a year, saying we have to save democracy. Right. Democracy is in danger, and yet
what does that even mean anymore, Stephen?
I don't know, but their voters haven't even really voted for a candidate, right? They're installing Kamala Harris. They installed Joe Biden. And they kicked Bernie Sanders out and installed Hillary Clinton. So when do Democrat voters get to really decide who they want to be their president?
Right. Well, you haven't. And, on the side of the right, the Republicans tried to do the same thing in 2016. You had Jeb Bush being pushed. And I mean, there's an old funny clip of Donald Trump and Jeb Bush on the stage together. And Trump says, your polling's going down the drain. You keep going any worse, you're going to be off the end of the stage. By the way, the staging was done, the leading candidates were in the middle and Jeb Bush started in the middle and he slowly made his way off the end of the stage. The same thing tried to be done, but Donald Trump stopped it. He put an end to it. And more importantly, the voters put an end to it. The Republicans, and libertarians and independents who all went out and voted for President Trump in 2016, they said enough's enough. And then you heard it again in 2020. They were trying to push Trump off after the insurrection of January 6th. It's really troubling to see, and I think quite funny to see now that you've got this same sort of infighting happening inside the Democratic Party. Because quite honestly, we've never seen it before. Even with trying to get Joe Biden off the ballot, you had the Democrats run around like little rats. You'd hear a leak from here or a leak from there that Joe's got to go, but none of them had the pair to go on television and say, Joe, you've got to go. It's very telling.
Yeah. You probably saw this. Tennessee House Representative Andy Ogles has said that they are preparing to file articles of impeachment against Vice President Kamala Harris. She's, only been the presumptive nominee for a couple of days now, but they are saying that in their estimation, she has committed high crimes and misdemeanors and displays extreme incompetence based on allowing the border invasion. 10 million people have invaded the United States. They're depleting our social safety net programs. And now you have Axios News saying, was she ever really in charge of the border? I don't think so. Like, this is just double speak. What are your thoughts on these articles of impeachment?
You know, it's funny. President Trump had made Mike Pence the COVID czar, right? He put him in charge of that. And you know, I'm no fan of Mike Pence, but I think Mike Pence did what he could do at the time with the resources we have. But these Democrats, they take no responsibility for anything that is done. I mean, if we would have had this border secured and everything had gone well, and all they had to do was just keep doing what President Trump was doing, you would have had Kamala Harris out there championing it. You know, they go back on everything they say. You say 10 million. I think the number's probably a lot higher than that. You had Chris Wray on Capitol Hill this week, and he's talking about he's being questioned on gangs coming into the country and MS-13. And he's answering the questions like it's nothing. He's saying, you know, well, we need to look at what we already have in the country. Are you kidding me? I mean, there's gangs pouring across the border. There's drugs pouring across the border. And the most important thing that Lou used to say is the border is not controlled by us. It's controlled by the cartels. And I mean, that's very telling. How do you have a border that's being controlled by a drug organization that kills, murders, rapes, and traffics women and children? How do you have that in the greatest country in the world?
Yeah. So the articles of impeachment, I think that they're great, but you know, the Republicans are not great at getting things across the finish line. They're good at opening stuff. They're not good at closing, right? And so I would love for them to close, because I see Kamala Harris as having two really big targets on her back. Number one, she has been absolutely complicit in the cover-up of Joe Biden's dementia.
Right.
She has also absolutely been put in charge of the border, which has been an abject failure. I hope that Trump and his marketing team will hammer that over and over again. Is there any other area of Kamala Harris that you think poses a threat to her ability to win or makes her a weak candidate?
I mean, everything. You go back to the days of Willie Brown. I mean, her days as a prosecutor, putting people in jail for marijuana crimes, ruining their lives over it, and then laughing about it as she goes out and says, you know, you know, it's fine to go out and smoke marijuana. I mean, the whole thing is, everything is a joke to her. Anytime she's asked a question, she doesn't know the answer to it, you get that stupid cackle. I don't think there's a brain in her head, and I'm saying it nicely. It's the same reason she couldn't get through a primary process. She's extremely unlikable. I think she had the highest turnover rate for staffers working for her. I've never met the lady, and nor do I ever want to meet the lady. With all respect to the office of vice president, hopefully never president. But I don't think she knows a damn thing. She's been carried along her career, her entire life. And I think she's very lucky and very fortunate to be where she is today.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, she may be one of the luckiest people that's ever lived. Like, things just continue to work out for her. It's really quite fascinating. I want to roll a clip for you, and then we can both react to it. I haven't told you or shown you what it is. I think you, being intelligent, are going to pick up on why I showed this. Lou Dobbs would have freaked out over this. So let me just play that for us, John.
Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas starts us off from Washington. Good morning, Pierre.
George, good morning. Our audience is about to see the frantic seconds in the moments after the gunman tried to kill former President Trump. It's all caught on police body cam video. And warning to our family at home, what you're about to see may be disturbing. Seconds in the moments after the gunman tried to kill former President Trump. It's all caught on police.
So be careful. We're about to show you footage of when the government tried to kill former President Donald Trump. Is this a Freudian slip, or did they just, expose exactly what they were hoping would happen?
You know, I'm no government conspiracy theorist, but I think since 2016, we've learned a lot of things about the government, and they're not always honest with us. A lot of the times they tell us something's wrong, it's right. And when they say it's bad, it's probably good. I think we need to let the facts play out here and see what happens. But the absence of evidence, Stephen, everybody leaves a footprint. I don't care if you're the most quiet person in the world or the most flamboyant person in the world. Everyone leaves a footprint, whether it's social media, your friends, anything. Don't you find it troubling that we've got this 20-year-old kid? I mean, every 20-year-old kid, almost every 20-year-old kid's on some sort of social media. If you're a gamer, you're on some sort of Discord or something like that, or Twitch. If you're a social media guy, you're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, Truth, whatever it is, right? How do people now find it odd that we've got this 20-year-old kid who's got no social media footprint at all? We know nothing about him. We know that he's a 20-year-old kid who, there's accounts that are saying he was bullied in high school, and then accounts saying he wasn't bullied in high school. How do we have this 20-year-old kid who we've got nothing on him? The other telling thing is we learned from Christopher Wray that apparently just 2 hours before the assassination attempt, this kid was flying a drone from where he was to where President Trump would be. He also entered the gallery of people hours before the rally with a viewfinder. People were saying it's a golf viewfinder to get an idea of how far of a shot he had on President Trump. And then to top it all off, somehow he climbs up a ladder onto the roof of a building right under the watchful eyes of Secret Service and takes 8 shots. That's from Christopher Wray, 8 shots at the former president of the United States. Something just doesn't smell right here.
Yeah, no, there's so many inconsistencies. The Occam's razor would have you believe that this was either a stand down order in order to take out public enemy number one of the deep state, or this was extreme incompetence, and not just from a couple people, dozens and dozens of people. I don't know, that none of it makes sense. And yet we're supposed to put our faith that the FBI is going to do a fair analysis, a fair investigation, and tell the American people the truth. We know that's not going to happen.
Well, the other thing, Stephen, too, that I found very peculiar was moments after the shooting, the days after the shooting, you had people on television saying, well, the Secret Service is there to be reactive, not proactive. So that means have at it, take a shot at the president's head, whether it be current or former or presumptive nominee, take a shot at their head, and then we'll deal with the situation. I mean, in what world we'll even say post JFK, in what world does that make any sense?
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Smells to high heavens, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, like I want to know, were the counter sniper people, did they actually have him in their finder for a while? Were they told to stand down? Do they actually have green light authority to take somebody out?
Right.
A lot more needs to come out about that, and we're learning a lot from these congressional Capitol Hill testimonies, but it all looks really bad.
The telling thing was they actually had a picture. I don't know if you had the chance to see, but there was body cam footage released. I think it was from Senator Chuck Grassley of the police meeting with Secret Service after the shooting, and they're standing over the body, and they're showing, it looked like some sort of high level Secret Service guy, a picture on their phone. This was the guy we had this picture of him earlier on walking around in the day, and you sit there and you're like, what? So from all the accounts we hear, the shot was taken without any pre-authorization, just based on timing. But if you did that, then why didn't you try to mitigate it? And you didn't have to shoot the guy. Okay. Say you don't want to do that, right? Why did you let President Trump go out on stage when you had this man walking around that you knew about 2 hours before?
Yeah. Here's another question that you just made me think of is, if he was able to get off 8 shots, let's say there wasn't a second shooter, even though the audio evidence seems to show that there are 2 different guns, 2 different locations, different firing style. The witnesses saying somebody's on the water tower. Let's set that all aside.
Right.
If this guy could get off 8 bullets before being shot, why don't you just pump him right into Donald Trump's chest?
Right. You know, it's a great question. I mean, it doesn't really make sense. We know of 3 bullets, right, or 3 or 4 bullets. Where did the rest of them go? Which is kind of concerning. You had one man who was brutally shot in his head, disgusting. 2 other people hurt. One of them hitting President Trump. What about the other 3 or 4 bullets? You know, it's very. There's a lot of questions, and you know, in Christopher Wray's testimony the other day, he had an exchange with Eric Swalwell, and Eric Swalwell is trying to make the comparison of, this man was using an AR-15. Was he able to get off more rounds than if he was using a bolt-action sniper rifle? Well, I hate to tell the congressman, but all it takes is one shot. You know, on a good shot, it's one shot, and from 130 yards out, you know, that's a shot for an amateur. President Trump was saved by the grace of God. You know, it's a disgrace.
Yeah, yeah. Let's go back to Kamala Harris. She's only been the presumptive nominee for a few days. She's already broken the law, taking Joe Biden's donation money.
Right.
This is a clear violation of federal election law. The head of the FEC has come out and said, yeah, if these were donated to someone else, you can't give them to someone else, right? Like, right. But now NPR, who is funded by taxpayers, is telling them, listen, in order to save democracy and get Donald Trump, you got to use that money. And even if you get sued down the road, that's a problem for future Kamala Harris. Use that, take the headshot, do it now, use that money now. Like, this is crazy to me that they know that they're going to get away with breaking the law.
Right. You know, the funny part about it is, and it's not actually even funny, is that President Trump was indicted in New York for what it was an alleged, even though they couldn't cite an underlying crime, FEC violation of paying off Stormy Daniels.
Yes.
So you know, it's the rules for thee and rules for me, but nobody says a word about it. I mean, you know, I was telling somebody, I was in an interview the other day, and I told them, I said, if Steve Harvey came out and did a national address to us that everything we've seen for the last 3.5 years was a joke, I would not even be surprised, because we've went that far. You have a president who's been indicted multiple times, who faces hundreds of years in prison. He gets an assassination attempt. All of a sudden, one case gets dropped against him. I mean, the stuff we're seeing right now, Stephen, I don't think you could have dreamed or even had a nightmare that this could have ever happened inside this country. The Democrats have made a joke of this country, the judicial system, and now the FEC.
Yeah, man, that is a good point. They took a misdemeanor, a rounding error, a fake story, blend them together, raise it to a felony level, and make it about election interference and breaking FEC rules. And now Kamala and Joe are trying to break it, not over a $130,000 lawyer fee,
right,
but over like $250 million in election donor money, like a pebble compared to a giant boulder. And then what happens? The news immediately jumps on the Democrat side saying, no, just do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Do it. Get it done. We've got to take this headshot and get rid of Trump. It's disgusting to me.
You know, the Democrats are always saying election interference, Russia, Russia, Russia. And if you ever want a story disputed, you just say it's Russia, and all of a sudden it's gone. You're a conspiracy theorist if you think otherwise. The Democrats are the only people in this country who have ever taken part in election interference. And I mean, you can look at 2020, you can look at the election machines, you can look at the laws that were changed just before the election for mail-in ballots. You can look at voter rolls that haven't been scrubbed in years. You can look at Zuckerbucks. How much money has Mark Zuckerberg spent in elections to save and bail out the Democrats? They are the only people in this country who have ever taken part in threats to democracy and election interference.
Yeah. Okay, final question. I appreciate you coming on.
Anytime.
Joy Reid of MSNBC said that if people of color don't vote for Kamala Harris, that they're going to look crazy. To me, this sounds an awful lot like Joe Biden telling Charlemagne the God, if you don't vote Democrat, then you ain't black. Like, why is this becoming a racial issue, a skin color issue versus a content of character and policy issue. It makes no sense to me.
This was an issue that Barack Obama, I think, started. I was no fan of George Bush. I was young at the time, but I do a lot of reading. And George Bush was a terrible president for this country. But you didn't see any of that race and that race baiting and that hate. This was something Obama had brought in. I think the African American society today is smart enough, and they have, they have a clear view of what's going on in this country, and they have a clear view that President Trump is all for them, whether it be wage growth or crime. President Trump, I think, is the chosen choice of the African American voter. The race baiting that we're seeing from Kamala Harris. I had read a story. I do a lot of reading in the Gateway Pundit, and one of their main stories this week was that Kamala Harris is a descendant of an Irish Jamaican slave owner down in Jamaica. That's not something you read about, right? You don't hear about that. Instead, it's the degrading of the African American, that you, for some reason, are in debt to the Democratic Party. Let me be very clear. No black person in America owes any deal of debt to the Democrats. They've done nothing for them in their years of power. And if anything, they've hurt them more than that, beyond repair, I would say. And it's going to take President Trump to come back in to finish the job and do what's right for these people.
Well, I think she might have a worse track record than even Joe Biden. And I guarantee you the Trump reelection team, the RNC headed up by Laura Trump and others, they are digging in. They're going to expose Kamala Harris like she's never been exposed before. And it's going to be really interesting to see how people react in the presence of truth, and whether there will be cognitive dissonance to say, I don't see that. I don't see that issue. I don't see that she probably locked up more black men than any other prosecutor in America. Oh, no. We can't do that. Right. So it'll be really, really interesting to watch.
One last point on that. I'm very happy Trump picked JD Vance as his vice president. You had heard rumblings over the last year or so that President Trump needs to pick Marco Rubio because he needs to pull the Hispanic vote, or Donald Trump needs to pick Ben Carson to pull the black vote. I'm happy he picked JD Vance because he picked the character of a person that he wanted and he liked and will follow his policies. And he didn't pick it based on race, because that would be DEI. And we know DEI is no good for America. I love Ben Carson to death. I love Marco Rubio to death. But I think when you do something like that and you make a choice like that because of someone's skin color or their ethnicity, it's a big slap into the face to that ethnicity that you're trying to appeal for. And if Trump would have picked up a black candidate or a Spanish candidate to appeal to that class, I think it would have offended the hell out of those people, because they're way smarter than that.
Yeah. No, I think JD Vance is going to be a great choice. My hope is not only that Donald Trump takes the country for 4 years, but that JD Vance takes it for another 8. If we can right the ship for 12 years, I think America has a really great opportunity and a really bright future. John, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to follow you online, where can I point some traffic?
You could send them at Twitter or X, John Fawcett, NY.
Okay. I will make sure to put direct links so that they can find you easily. Thank you for coming on, and I appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You're the man. Thanks so much, Stephen. Thanks for having me.